Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Doujinshi, and welcome back to another episode of Hentai Reviews, the only series where we solemnly believe that some things do not deserve sequels. And if you're probably wondering what I'm talking about, you ever watch those movies that come out in the middle of summer, just like out of nowhere, nobody really asked for it. It was just one of those like, hey, here's an old concept, let's make it new. It has a big budget, came out in the middle of summer, so everybody was off work, everybody was out of school, they were just that ready to see it. And then it ended up getting a ton of money, but it was a very mediocre review. You know those sorts of movies? And then they come out with a sequel about like maybe 2 years later, which it very heavily did not deserve. Well, that's kind of what this is. Not necessarily that bad, but I'm not going to be nice about this one. You see, today we're going to be reviewing episode 2 of, it's a long ass name, so I'm just going to abbreviate it because I'm a sane human being. Amaama x Holic, done by our friends over at Pink Pineapple, running at about 19 minutes and 42 seconds long with a total of 16 categories, notable of which are monster, orgy, and boob milk. If you're wondering why I save that one for last, it's because there are not a lot of fetishes in the world that are like one of the weirder ones that I enjoy, but I'm not gonna sit here and say that this is a bad one. But let's just go ahead and jump into it, because this one, it's not great. You see, episode 2 of Amaama x Holic starts out with our main character from the last episode and Sally, you know, the dark-skinned, I want to say half-dragon, but she also doesn't exhibit a lot of dragon-like features other than the horns that black dragons in Dungeons & Dragons have, but, you know, that's really subjective. She may just be a demon girl. Regardless, they're in the middle of a back alley, just, you know, going at it, because she was artificially inseminated, which gave her her daughter, so she's technically never had sex before and is very much open to the idea of it. But then again, she's not exactly, you know, experienced in this whole thing, so she needs somebody to help her. Even though probably the most efficient way to get mana, which is what these daughters lack, because somebody threw in a gas canister that sapped away all their mana and they now need it to be woken up, comes from a mixture of the essence of humans that is given to then monster girls that can then be created using the milk of life, which is essentially breast milk that is then infused with the same thing that humans have. You want to see why this is so convoluted? Because it's stupid. So these two are in the back alley just going at it, which starts off scene number 1, which is scene number 1. Starts off at 0 minutes and 35 seconds and goes all the way to 5 minutes and 35 seconds. And I have a few problems with this. Not necessarily because it's like a bad scene, but we'll talk about that later. You see, what's going on in this is they're going at it, and at the very end of it, in most of these sorts of scenarios, at least in this episode, when they finish, the mother then creates a shit ton of breast milk that comes out in explosive amounts. And the only thing that they have, because they were doing it in the back alley of a random part of the city, is a whole bunch of used beer bottles. Now, I'm not 100% sure what they were going to do in the beginning of this, but now that I've seen it, and I know they're going to make the daughters drink this shit, why didn't they have literally anything to do this? What the fuck? Those girls are gonna die due to infection if this happens. There is so much health hazards in this scenario alone. First off, fucking in a back alley ain't exactly classy. Second, breast milk in unregistered containers that were definitely used and then left alone, being given to teenagers, or at least 18-year-olds minimum, because this is a hentai and nobody is below that age. That is concerning, but it pissed me off for that reason and that reason alone. So let's go ahead and move on. After their whole shtick and their insanely tainted breast milk, main character then literally walks over and then finds the housing of the next woman. The vampire, or if you will, succubus girl, At least that's what her design would indicate, because it's not really clear, because either it was said in such a passing way that I never actually got to say, or she was just straight up so uninteresting that they literally just gave her a design and nothing else. They meet at their house, and then they decide, hey, let's go ahead and clean up so we can, get busy. And then in the middle of the bathhouse, they just start going at it there, which is a little bit more clean. It's gonna smell weird, because I don't know if you ever farted in a shower before, but that is a tear gas attack waiting to happen. So once they just get there, they immediately start going at it, and that leads into scene number 2. Scene number 2 lasts from 6 minutes and 30 seconds and goes all the way to 12 minutes and 10 seconds. And I can't necessarily say this is the worst one of the scene, but this is definitely not one of the better ones, mostly because I don't find this girl all that good looking. It's the typical, anime MILF body, where big boobs, taller than normal, and, big hips. That's about it. But all the women in this series have the same cookie-cutter body shape, so it's not really anything special. It's just you change the skin color a little bit. Like, this one doesn't have as much vitamin D as the other one, so we gotta give her some D later. I hate that joke. That was a dumb joke. And then afterwards, at least after the whole scene is done, it then cuts to them in the hospital. Finally, they went to the hospital. They should have just had sex there so it could be in a sterile environment, or at least in somebody's house with freshly washed dishes, instead of, in a bathhouse and then in a back alley. Not in that order, though. So all 3 of the mothers and all 3 of the daughters are in this area. What happens is that they start feeding the breast milk to all the daughters, which pissed me off because I guarantee those were not sorted, so it didn't even matter that he slept with all the mothers. He could have just done one mother over and over and over again, or at least just one, because these women have boobs so big they could make a fucking Dairy Queen by themselves and never have to order any shipments. But regardless, they start feeding these to the daughters, who then start waking up slowly, but they all start going at it immediately because being around monster girls immediately makes you horny, which is, I think that's a stupid thing, honestly. Not necessarily because it's a bad trope, it's just one of those tropes that's so lazy, they're like, there's no chemistry here, let's make them horny because they smell human. Do you have any idea what it's like to play any sort of game and then you have shit tons of just fantasy races of different things, like half dragons, half elves, orcs, Goliaths, fucking anything, and the one thing all of them want is to fuck a human, you basic fucking losers? No. 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 That is not the plot point. I hate that plot point so much. But they all start going at it in scene number 3. Scene number 3 goes from 13 minutes and 10 seconds, and it ends at 18 minutes and 15 seconds. In which case, it essentially just straight up ends right there, with all of them participating in something that I would barely call a sex scene. So let's go ahead and get into the reviews, because this is where I really want to vent. So let's go ahead and get into it. The animation. The animation is awful. I do not like the animation, specifically because this was a series that already didn't have great animation to begin with, and then dropped the ball so hard it sounds like James Earl Jones. And in this, if there are characters in a talking scenario, if they are talking, the other people don't move and don't blink. It is so jarring to be like, what the fuck are they doing? And then, again, in the background of the whole thing, if one person is, participating in sex, if they're not the focus, then they also don't move. And it is so hard to look at, because there's so little movement. It's so, stilted, and there's not a ton of movement anyway. And God, I don't know why. This one pissed me off so much. So this is a 3 out of 10. This is a 3 out of 10 in the animation department, because holy shit, this could be, if if they had just gone for like the lighting and the shading that Queen Bee does, I know calling Queen Bee out when it comes to better animation. If they could have just like made the characters like more, I don't know, oily, then it would have given more illusion to their movement. But they're just flat colors instead of like shaded, which is so fucking awful to watch. 3 out of 10. I'm not elaborating any further. Now into the next one, the characters and story. Remember how I just went on a rant about why they all had to start having sex because they all think humans smell good, so they all have to fuck them? This is part of that. I despise this part so much. And all the women in this are like cookie cutter cutouts of the exact same woman with the same body proportions. Just like they took the skin color like grading that you can get on like the South Park games, and they clicked on 3 random parts, boop boop boop, and then just gave them all those different things, and then threw some like decently designed clothing on them. And I can safely say that's the only difference between them, because other than Sally in the beginning of this episode, who like has some sort of personality, the rest of them don't. They're nothing. There's nothing. They're not even like tropes. It's just the one of them who's never had sex before, and then the other 2 who don't give a fuck. And then they just start all going at it, and the daughters wake up, and they have even less personality. This is 4 out of 10. The only reason I'm giving it this and not being meaner is because the designs are at least a little bit distinct. And we're gonna go ahead and move on to what we're all really here for, the plot, which I can safely say is probably one of the worst ones I've seen so far on this channel. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's a 5 out of 10. This is mid. Do you have any idea what it's like to say sex is mid? That's a fucking stupid statement. And yet, and then I had to say it. Sex is mid in this. Specifically in this, there is so little of like any creativity. Besides the breast milk, it is all the same. This is just like basic, nothing. There is no up, no down. That's it. And the only reason I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 is for the fact that I don't mind the breast milk. I don't think that it's weird. I think it's like, it's one of those fetishes that you don't go searching for on the daily, but it's one you find like every 2 weeks and you're like, I'll see what that is. But that's my opinion, and I'm trying to like give this a helping of my opinion and also what I think the general is. And so far, this is only appealing middle of the road to both of us. And let's go ahead and get into the actual like overall thing for this. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. I don't know if this is my lowest rated one so far, but god damn, I sure want it to be. Because this is just... The last one wasn't all that great. I think I gave it a 6 out of 10. This one shit the bed, and then didn't even try to turn into a fetish. Just like shit the bed and then threw the mattress out. Now, I'm not into that what I just said, but god damn, you could have done anything with it. Could have made this like a sexy nurse thing where you were all at a hospital trying to like get samples and do all that shit. But no, you did different houses, sometimes not even in houses. And then you just same shaped woman everywhere. Oh, fuck. It's sad when you think anime titties have been done wrong. But I'm gonna go ahead and end it there because fuck, I need to do the next one. Thank you everybody for being here. Last I checked, we're at 190 subscribers. This is so weird going from the whiplash of just like, this shit was ass to holy shit. That's a big number. I might actually have to start doing some things for the landmarks because fuck, we're getting there fast. I think my last thing I said was 250 subs. Then I try my best to do a cover of the Interspecies Reviewers opening, and I guarantee at 300 subs I'm doing Maid Week. You probably don't know what that is, but Maid Week is for an entire week. Every time I do a review, I'm going to dress up in a fucking maid costume. And if you guys don't think I'll do it, get me to 300. Bet. Because I will. That being said, let's go ahead and end it there, because I'm not on a timer. I'm just timed out. So thank you everybody for being here. It is blowing my mind how far the numbers have gotten so far. And I appreciate each and every one of you for being at least the minimum of interested in anything that I'm doing. So thank you all for being here. It is insane. I love each and every one of you. On that note, let's go ahead and end it. Have a nice day. Don't be a dick. There's too many of them. And wash your fucking hands. I've been the Doctor. Peace.